iPhone 5 anyway, and a lot of these other app developers see that same thing. So in terms of software, that pretty much covers it up. Now, performance-wise, the iPhone 5 had that Apple A6 chip inside of it, a dual-core CPU, and 1 gigabyte of RAM on every single model that came out with it. Now, we did have that base 16 gig model, which I think was an increase from the last generation, but this was the first iPhone, I believe, that only had 1 gig of RAM. You know, the ones before this, I think, had like half a gig of RAM, so this one had twice the amount of RAM as before, and I don't think we've ever seen a generation increase like that since I think the iPhone 6. So the 6 to the 6S actually got an extra gig, going from 1 gig to 2 gigs, but I don't think we've gotten another generation that increased the RAM by twice the amount since then, and I think that's pretty insane. I think with the iPhone 5 specifically, the performance isn't, this is what I'll tell you. For a 2012 phone being talked about in the later part of 2020, I think this phone's performance is actually pretty decent. I think it actually holds up extremely well. It's pretty smooth. It's definitely not the fastest thing, but it has a lot of capabilities still. I think, if from going from one app to the other, if you had to do a lot of basic tasks on this specific iPhone, I feel like you'd be able to get through probably a majority of little tiny things. I think the problems start to lie if you specifically look at, the capability when it comes down to, basic things with iOS 14, like widgets and, keeping apps in the background for a little bit longer. I think that's what you kind of tend to see the problems arise at in these specific situations. I think when you have a phone like this, it's not going to be fast. It's not going to be expected. It's just going to be what you would expect in a way of a 2012 phone in 2020. Now, if a phone manufacturer were to release this type of performance in this day and age, even on a budget, $200 phone, I would be super shocked. I would just think the performance would not be that great. But I've seen a lot of manufacturers release phones in that $100 price tag that don't feel as premium as an iPhone 5, that don't have the type of performance as the iPhone 5, and frankly just don't even have the features or the stability as an iPhone 5. I bought a lot of, kind of budget tier phones from like Walmart and Best Buy, I think even throughout this year, that were like $30, $50, $100, and they weren't that good of phones, to be completely honest. The iPhone 5 in some ways is actually better. Now, I would rather have the most recent, most secure version of the phone, and I think that may be the Android as of this point, but the iPhone 5 still has a, pretty decent performance when it comes down to it. It just so happens that it's not that good of a performing phone, but you guys kind of expect that at this point. So in terms of performance, that pretty much covers it up. Now,